Greetings, listeners. You're tuning in to Sinister Soup, an audio imprint of Grendel Press for lovers of everything dark and delicious. I'm your host, Clay Vermolum. We hope you enjoy today's story and remember to stay tuned afterwards for a featured interview with the author. See you on the other side. A Turn at the Neck by Madhu Cambell. A tiny globule of blood glitters at the entrance of Maitili's living quarters. It bubbles and evaporates in the minuscule pressure and microgravity of the asteroid Dugu. If Maitili had a heartbeat, it would have hammered now. She pushed herself in just in time to find her 6-year-old daughter, Padma, zip across the room and out through the large hole opening into the asteroid belt. Maitili launches toward Padma, but only manages to grab the thin hem of Padma's unitard. She yanks Padma back into the room, into her embrace. Mother and daughter spin violently from the unchecked momentum. Their long hair balloons around them, making them look like a black mushroom sprouting from the gritty Dugu soil. Maitili reaches out a shaky hand and grabs a handrail. They lurch to a stop facing the large hole on the other side of their room, their window to the vastness of space. Padma thrashes and screams inaudibly, trying to get through the window again. Maitili snaps a bulky black comm piece around Padma's ear and sets the dial. The high-pitched static revolves into Padma's screams. "Mine! Give it back!" "What happened?" Maitili tries to shout over her. "My blood! Give it back!" Outside their window, a glittering piece of black rock crumbles from the asteroid wall. Maitili carefully floats from handrail to handrail towards the window while holding a kicking and snarling Padma. More rocks crumble away outside, drifting out to join the asteroid belt. Maitili leans out the window, gripping the handrail tight, and looks up the matte blackness of the asteroid's surface just in time to see a glint of metal disappear through another window. She glances at the open maw of space before ducking back inside and floating to the other side of the room, as far as possible from the window, and tethering herself and Padma to the wall. Hugging Padma, she hums a lullaby. It's the same lullaby she sang when they were still human, back on Earth. It's the same one she sang while holding Padma after being ejected from their colony ship. They had floated in the glow of Jupiter, its vast belt speckled with the shadows of vampires, their friends and crewmates, all hoping to fall into its gravity well. Vampires orbiting the planet, hoping for a quick death instead of the slow decay over centuries of existence as an empty husk dried up without human blood. "Become a vampire. Take humanity to the stars," proclaims the fading poster on the wall across from Maitili, the only non-utilitarian item in their tiny quarters. It was there when they arrived on asteroid Dugu, after being rescued from Jupiter's orbit. The poster features 3 tall, athletic vampires in shimmering black unitards. They stare down at Maitili, their red eyes shining with pride. Eyes that had, 10 years ago, convinced thousands to join the cause and become a vampire. The money their families received for their services wasn't too bad either. Now when Maitili looked up at that outdated optimism, her eyes shining red with hunger, the only purpose the poster serves is to show which way's up in the microgravity of asteroid Dugu. Maitili feels the vibrations of Padma humming along with her through the scratchy carbon fiber fabric of their standard-issue black unitards. Not wearing a bulky spacesuit is one of the few things Maitili is grateful for as a vampire in space. She can hold her daughter unencumbered. "I tried to stop him," says Padma, snuggling close to her. "How much did he take?" "All of it." Rage encroaches on Maitili's vision in red, sinewy filaments. She fights the urge to spit on the poster. The vampires on it remind her of the colony foreman, a tall, athletic woman with luscious golden hair and a chiseled jaw. She had looked down on Maitili's small frame, begging for more blood for her daughter. "Supplies low," said the foreman in her posh accent, her eyes the dim red with satiety. "You need to wait your turn." Maitili shuts her eyes to banish the anger. At least they aren't still floating around Jupiter. "I'll get it back. Don't worry about it," she says, putting all her calm into her tone. "You stay here and keep singing, okay?" Padma nods and starts singing the words to the lullaby. 10 red balloons up in the blue sky. Maitili untethers herself, floats through a tunnel at the base of the poster, and emerges into a large tubular corridor lit with glowing white algae. Evenly spaced holes and handrails dot the jet black walls on all sides. A faint smell of old blood and fresh ammonia permeates the corridor, exacerbating her hunger. "Pop goes one when a bird flies by," sings Padma before Maitili turns the dial on her comm-piece to the general channel. Dugu is a lot like the Mumbai slums she lived in before her transformation. The rough, crumbling texture of the asteroid feels like the mud walls of the one-room home she shared with her husband, in-laws, and 5 children. The tangy metallic scent of the asteroid isn't as repulsive to her vampire senses as the pungent dregs of everyday life and lowest rungs of society was to her human nose. And yet the hunger, the all-consuming ache of hunger, is the same. She misses the smooth walls of the Harmony, the colony ship she worked on. She misses the constant flow of blood from the 5,000 human colonists in cryosleep. She had doted on them, meticulously monitoring their vitals for nearly 2 years. Their journey was cut short just as they were about to enter the gravity well of Jupiter for a slingshot maneuver out of the solar system. The war between vampires and humans caught up with them, and the vampire crew was ejected into space by the human soldiers who ambushed them in Jupiter's orbit. The vampires from Dugu had rescued a fraction of the doomed vampires a couple of weeks later. Maitili picks up stray, distant conversations under static buzz over the comms. But no one's talking about stolen rations. And why would they use the general channel for that? She smacks her forehead, trying to shake off the hunger-induced stupidity. She pulls herself up through the tunnels towards the level where the glint of metal had disappeared. The tunnel gets narrower, squeezing her on all sides, the thrum of machinery vibrating through her. She's near the control levels, where they grow the algae lights, and more importantly, power the pressurized storage for blood. When she emerges into the larger corridor, she's face to face with a small boy with curly black hair and rust-brown skin squatting next to the hole with both ankles hooked into a rail. He smiles at her. Around the clear tube he's sipping blood through. Maitili watches the blood flow through the intricate pressurized capillaries in the blood bag before rising through the arterial tube and into his waiting mouth. Maitili pounces on him with a snarl and tries to snatch the bag, but the boy is too quick. He gracefully backflips out of her reach and hooks onto another handrail with his ankles. He continues to sip blood and smiles at Maitili upside down. Maitili's vision turns a hazy red and she growls. This will be easy. She crouches, sizing him up, waiting for him to show his next move. He glances behind her. She leaps. He darts ahead, but she's aiming for his destination. She crosses the 6 feet diameter of the corridor in one smooth jump and has him pinned to the wall, like stealing candy from a baby. She snatches the blood bag and wraps her lips around the tube. The boy screams inaudibly under her weight. Blood pours into her mouth, warm and metallic, with an aftertaste of bioplastic. The red haze in her vision subsides, and she sees the kid more clearly. She can't hear him scream, but feels his frail legs kicking her side. His mouth form the words, "Monster." "You're a monster now!" Her son, her firstborn, had screamed at her after her transformation. He'd thrown the payment check back in her face before storming out. She never saw him again. Maitili flinches. The memory hurts even after 10 years. She lets go of the little boy. He stops screaming and blinks at her for a second before slurping up the blood droplets sprayed around them during their skirmish. He manages to get a few of the larger droplets before they evaporate. Maitili sighs, weighing the half-empty bag. Maybe she could talk to the boy's parent. Someone crashes into her and sends her spiraling. A stream of blood swirls around her before she can find her bearing. She's pinned to the wall by a woman. She has the same curly hair and rust-brown skin as the boy. She looks familiar, but Maitili can't place her. "You stole my ration!" Maitili snarls, her vision turning red again. The woman doesn't let go, but grabs the bag from Maitili's hands and gives it to the boy standing behind her timidly. Maitili uses that moment to kick the woman off her. The woman spirals but recovers fast by grabbing a handrail. She snarls inaudibly, eyes turning red, ready to slam into Maitili again. The boy squirrels into a hole to avoid getting caught in the middle. Maitili raises her arms in surrender. She's no good to Padma if she's hurt. The woman lifts her eyebrows in response, but her shoulders don't relax. She watches Maitili, sizing her, no doubt waiting for the next move. Maitili keeps her hands raised. Recognition flits across the woman's face, and she smiles. Her almond eyes sparkle with mischief as she beckons Maitili to follow. Maitili hesitates, but follows the woman and her son, hoping they know where to find more rations. Would they have to resort to stealing? What if they got caught now with Maitili in tow? She and Padma could be spaced again. The memory of Jupiter's great red spot spiraling around her churns her insides. She presses closer to the wall, feeling its gritty surface, the thrum of machinery in its guts steadying her. When they reach a particularly narrow tunnel, barely 2 feet wide, the mother and son dive in. Maitili looks around to ensure no one sees her going in, turning the dial on her comm piece. Only static. She turns the dial to Padma and hears the reassuring lullaby still crackling through the comms, the girl's voice strained by hunger. Maitili pushes into the dark tunnel, the walls press down around her, tighter and tighter, before spitting her out abruptly into another dark room. A sharp pinch around her left ear greets her as someone snatches her comm piece. "Hey, give that back!" she shouts as her eyes adjust to the dark. The mother and son look like silvery blue ghosts floating next to her. The kid is drinking from the blood bag, the only thing that glows with warmth in the room. The mother fiddles with Maitili's comm piece. "What are you doing?" she signs to the mother. The mother shrugs in response. Maitili scans the room, hoping to find more glowing red bags of rations, but it's just an old tool closet. Ropes, tethers, grappling hooks, and ice axes are neatly arranged and labeled in large dusty boxes secured to the wall. The woman hands the comm piece back with a small, boxy blue antenna attached to it. Maitili snaps it back onto her ear. "What was that for?" The woman leaps towards Maitili and covers her mouth, the universal gesture for shut up. She points towards the entrance and signs for Maitili to listen. She does listen to the low hum of machinery for a few seconds before it resolves into voices. "ETA from the captain," says the foreman in her smooth accent. 2 hours. We're back early with more rations," says the other voice, breaking on the word rations. The woman's eyes twinkle red in the dark. Pleasant electricity courses through Maitili, but the woman moves to her ear. "Race to the fresh rations," she says. The words reverberate through Maitili. The woman pulls back and winks at her. Maitili recognizes her in that moment. The woman was one of the best telecom engineers on the colony ship, the Harmony. Now she's just another fellow refugee on Dugu. The woman and her son work to unscrew one of the toolboxes and move it aside to reveal a 3-foot wide hole leading out to space. They pick up a handful of tools, and the woman tethers her son to her belt. She leans out the window with just one ankle hooked onto the rail and throws the grappling hook to the side of the rock. She tests it once before swinging out the window with a cheeky grin. Loose pieces of rock float into space as the woman gracefully scales the bare surface of Dugu, her son clinging to her like a spider monkey. Maitili picks up a set of tools, hesitates by the window, the yawning maw of space willing to swallow her whole, and takes the long way back to her quarters. Back in the room, Maitili finds Padma clinging to a handrail under the poster, endlessly repeating the lullaby. Eyes shut tight, no doubt trying to keep hunger at bay. Maitili feels a rush of affection towards her sweet child and gently pulls her into a hug. Padma startles and pushes off the wall, pouncing on Maitili, her fangs bared. Maitili lets Padma's fangs scrape against the granite-like vampire skin of her neck. She always let Padme win the first round when they play. But this wasn't like when they played on the Harmony or even back on Earth as humans, no. Playful tickles or sweet childish giggles follow. Padma's eyes turn a rabid scarlet and she chomps down on Mitili's left hand, wild with frustration as she's unable to break skin. Hunger has turned her daughter into a monster. When Maitili decided to become a vampire on the space mission to financially support her family, she was shunned. She was no longer welcome in their slum. Only her youngest daughter, 6-year-old Padma, had clung to her arm, wailing to go with her. Padma had bitten away her father's hands as he tried to pry her from Maitili. "Fine. Go be with that monster. She will drain you empty, see if I care." Those were Maitili's husband's last words to her and to Padma. Maitili had held her crying daughter in her arms, breathing in the earthy, umami fragrance of an unwashed child, and promised she would not drain her before biting into her. She had promised Padma a better life in space, a lift-off from hunger, pain, and annihilation, one where Padma can be her sweet little child forever. Not a monster. The only way Maitili can keep her promise now is to get more rations. Only 2 hours before the captain returns. They must leave now to avoid fighting with the colony foreman for scraps. Maitili Prize is still chomping Padma off her hand. Padma's bites, deadly against a human, leave only a scratch on Mitili's forearm. Once free from Padma's bites, Maitili guides her little one to the handrail and holds her there with both hands, till Padma's wild eyes focus on her. Satisfied that she had calmed Padma enough, she turns around to pick up the grappling hook and looks out toward the window. Her stomach drops. Padma is already outside, only her feet visible as a silhouette. Maitili pushes off the wall, flies across the room, and overshoots the window out in space. Without Dugu's comforting shell, asteroids glitter all around her. The stars hold steady, the distant sun appears smaller than her fingernail. Maitili shuts her eyes to keep the vastness from overpowering her mind. The grappling hook feels cold and taut in her hands. She pulls her legs to her chest and pivots to face the looming dark mass of Dugu. When she hits the retract button on the grappling hook, it reels her back towards her room with a satisfying jolt. It reels her back towards Padma, climbing the asteroid's surface, leaving a stream of glittering debris in her wake. By the time she reaches Padma, a small dot of light above them grows larger and turns into the bright white exhaust plumes of a ship. When Padma stops climbing to stare at the ship, Maitili grabs her. Padma snarls and kicks, but she tethers herself to her with a carabiner, grabs the ice axes, and starts climbing to the landing pad. The comm piece bursts into life, spewing static, startling Maitili. She turns the dial to tune out the conversation between the foreman and the incoming ship. "Landing request," comes a man's voice through the static. "Clear for landing," says a staticky voice over the comms. A dozen vampires emerge from windows carved into the rock's surface all around them, climbing the asteroid using grappling hooks and ice axes. Some come alone, but others have children tethered to them. They cast large, spidery shadows on the rocks as the plumes grow larger. Maitili curses. They weren't the only ones with the comm upgrade. The exhaust plumes disappear to the other side of the asteroid. The vampires scuttling around them turn into dark silhouettes with red glowing eyes. There is no polite queuing. This is a race. Primal instincts to hunt course through Maitili, making her forget the expanse behind her. Padma throws her head back in wild, inaudible laughter. Maitili throws the grappling hook, kicks off the surface, makes a huge arc, and lands near the edge along with the several other vampires. The next jump takes her over the edge and towards the harsh white landing plumes, getting closer to the surface. As they leap to the ship, Maitili sees the colony enforcers, menacing vampires with shiny steel batons surrounding the landing site, preventing others from getting closer. The light from the plume turns to a silver as the ship lands. Maitili watches, horrified, as an enforcer hits a vampire square in the jaw and sends them flying upwards along with a child swinging behind them. The rope for their grappling hook snaps. The two ends twist and fold like freshly beheaded snakes. Maitili jumps and grabs the broken rope and yanks them back to the surface. In the dimming light of the rocket plume, she recognizes her rescues. The rust-brown skin and mischievous grin of the mother and son from her colony ship. The mother blows Maitili a kiss as they land back on the surface, unfazed by the possibility of drifting away in the asteroid belt. She whips out her sickles and scuttles toward the line of enforcers. It's still a race. Throwing her grappling hook, Maitili jumps and lands in between the mother and an enforcer. The foreman, her golden hair tied up in a neat bun, her lips a thin, determined line, her eyes burning red. Maitili stops, raises her arms in surrender. The foreman stops mid-charge, recognition sweeping across her face. She glances at Padma, and her eyes soften. She lowers her baton and barks orders that Maitili can't hear. Soon a thick mass of vampires surrounds the landing site, floating over each other like the low wall of a bowl. They are held back by enforcers using batons as barriers. Maitili and Padma are pushed forward, the batons against their abdomen. The mother and son press behind them. Red tendrils of hunger and desire overpower Maitili's vision. Padma's snarls fill her with wild joy. A bright light cleaves the stocky black ship. One section of the cube unfurls to the surface, revealing a bright white interior. A tall man in the standard black unitard with a tool belt around his waist steps out, tugging on a thick rope. The other end is attached to 3 pairs of legs and large, thick silver boots bound together with black duct tape. They bob out of the airlock a few feet off the ground. 10 red balloons up in the blue sky, Padma sings. Their space-suited thighs and chests covered in labels, stickers, and tubes emerged next, their hands sheathed in thick silvery gloves. Bound together with black tape, finally 3 heads emerge, covered in comically large, round, reflective helmets, hiding their terror. But Maitili is only interested in their red, pulsing hearts. 6 other vampires emerge, holding their own edible astronaut bouquet. Padma snarls, trying to break through the enforcers. Maitili pulls her back. Waves of vampires jostle them, pressing them against the steel batons. The captain surveys the chaos around the landing site as the other vampires wait behind him. He jumps off the ramp and lands in the middle of the circle. The astronauts bounce behind him. He pulls a large nail and hammer from his tool belt and tethers them to the ground, pushing the astronauts into a kneeling position. Maitili feels the heartbeat of the one facing her. It's beat faster than the other 2. The captain signs to his comm piece. Maitili sets her own and Padma's comm piece to a general channel. "I understand the hunger," the captain says as the static clears. "But we must proceed in an orderly—" A young girl much younger than Padma slams into the captain. They both fall face first and bounce off the surface, the little girl going much farther up. The captain grabs her foot and stops her from floating away. On all sides, hungry vampires push through the barriers. The foreman breaks her position, distracted by the commotion. Maitili jumps up, swirls the grappling hook, and throws it towards her astronaut. It lands halfway between them. She uses the hook as leverage and leaps. In one jump, she lands in front of the astronaut and thrusts Padma towards him. Padma rips off the helmet. A young brown-skinned man contorts his face in an inaudible scream. Maitili freezes. Her hunger twists to horror. "You're a monster!" her little boy had screamed at her. Blood oozes from the astronaut's eyes and nose, boiling, evaporating, wasting. Padma twists his head and bites into his soft neck. The vampires push past Maitili. She pulls them back by the hair and punches them in the face. She elbows another, trying to get past her, not caring who they are or where they land. Her primal hunger's back, too painful to ignore anymore. She is a monster. She leaps on the astronaut and bites down on a bulging vein in his neck. Blood pours into her mouth and onto her tongue without effort. It's warm and sweet. Alive. Closing her eyes, she falls into a glorious abyss, floats in warm blood. It pulses and pours into her without resistance. It belongs to her. A pair of hands yank her away from the vein. Tiny drops of blood leak out of the 2 perfect holes in the astronaut's graying neck. Maitili feels a pleasant satiation, something she hadn't felt all her life. She doesn't mind being pulled away, or the 3 other vampires jump on the astronaut to take her turn at the neck. Padma floats, still tethered to her, singing the lullaby. Her little girl's happy and full. Maitili's a monster who survives. Please stay tuned for a special interview with our author. Thank you, Madhu, for that intense story of family, famine, and societal oppression. I love this story because it is chock full of tension from the jump. Not only does our author utilize the themes and tropes of isolation horror excellently, but she amplifies it through in depth character work as we follow this mother trying to feed her starving daughter. Having been hungry a time or two myself, I can tell you there are few greater pains one can experience, but I imagine watching the starvation of your only surviving child would put any personal suffering to shame. I also enjoy how this story puts a darker twist on the vampiric curse, utilizing it as a PR stunt to travel the stars and ultimately turning the curse of immortality into an even more horrible circumstance than it already is in other vampire narratives. Excellent work, my friend. Thank you for sharing this story with us. If you enjoyed this tale, you're in luck. Madhu has many short stories out in the world, including a recent publication in Pseudopod, so be sure to go check out her link in the show notes. As always, I've been your host, Clay Vermolum, and this has been Sinister Soup, an audio imprint of Grendel Press. We're going to be releasing 2 more episodes next month, and that will be a wrap for our first season of the show. We hope you've enjoyed the stories as much as we have. Until next time, we'll see you on the other side. Hello, listeners and readers, and welcome to another episode of Sinister Soup, another author interview. Today, we are with Madhu Cambell, the author of A Turn at the Neck. So thank you so much for being here, Madhu. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you write?
Hi everyone. I'm Madhu Cambell, and I am originally from India. Now I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a software engineer by day, and an avid science fiction, fantasy, and horror nerd almost all the time. Uh, and yeah, I mostly write science fiction, fantasy, and horror. That's the genre I read the most in and enjoy writing in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about your writing journey. How did you get into writing, and where has that journey brought you to today? What are you working on right now, other than short fiction?
So I am. I've always loved reading. So I started writing pretty early as well, but it was never. Unfortunately, wasn't something that I thought I could pursue as a career when I was a teenager. So took a big detour into tech world. Um, but recently, I'd rather be writing than doing anything else. So I'm back into writing in a very focused way. I guess my big project right now is I have a standalone horror novel that I'm revising. I'm also trying to wrap up a few first drafts of vampires in space, actually. So turning this short story into a full-fledged novel because have enjoyed writing in this world a lot. So I'm trying to wrap up the first draft of that.
That's so exciting because so often you will read a short story, and sometimes short stories are done as a short story, and it's like that story is good, that story is complete. And I never like it when somebody says, "Oh, you should turn this to a novel," if the short story is finished. But this story feels very expansive, and I can tell you have a lot of other world building there to do. And so I'm really excited that you're expanding it into a novel because, yeah, there's so much packed into this little short story that you can tell it's just a tiny glimpse of how much you've actually thought about this. So Tell us a little bit more about the novel. How do you expand the story in that?
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you like the world here. So it originally started off as this really funny idea about what would happen if vampires were part of the space program, and it kind of evolved from that. And one of the things I really like about genre fiction is how we can explore different aspects of society through these fantastical elements. And that's something that it sort of evolved into based on this really what I thought was a funny idea initially. It kind of grew into this exploring the social dynamics of how science fiction or the space race would work when it comes into contact with something ancient and horrifying like vampires, and how society would sort of meld both of this into like both an interesting but also horrifying space adventure, I guess. So the novel is does actually follow a bunch of vampire hunters in space, and also giving us glimpses into how vampire uh, culture has evolved independent of life on Earth. At least in my world, it's like vampires have a lot more are tougher in space than they are on Earth. So I'm like they can go around without a spacesuit. They're not concerned about sunlight being refracted in the atmosphere and causing them to burn in our Earth atmosphere. So they're much better in space, and how that would. But they still need human blood. So it's like, how would that work? Is Yeah, the novel will explore that a lot more.
Yeah, and I like how you sort of flip the script with the vampire lore in this story. It's a really fun, original take on it. Because not only is it vampires in space, and you did some cool things playing with like how a vampire would actually survive in space. They don't necessarily need the oxygen. They don't seem to be as affected by gravity and things like that, all the ways that humans need the suit and everything. But you also play with the idea of flipping the script of like vampires from a societal level, because so often in stories we see vampires as these powerful beings. They're generally beings who have been around for so long that they've worked themselves into positions of power, and then they have that physical power as well that allows them to dominate, where like just their age and their standing and their wealth or whatever, they tend to have wealth because again they've been around a long time, so it makes sense. They can prevail with like physical strength when that isn't enough. And you flipped it so that the vampires are almost like this second class of society, where they've sort of been shipped to space because they can like survive out there better than humans can, and it almost feels like they're being used by humanity in a lot of ways. At least that's one of the ways I read it. So I thought it was really cool to flip the vampires, so they're almost in this place of being like the oppressed like group of people, you know. And that was really interesting. Why would you say you chose to try that out with the vampires? That was a cool choice.
Yeah, I guess it it is like every vampire story sort of stands on for something that we are thinking about in society. So
Yeah.
and this was also kind of like an exploration of that. Like I'm thinking a lot about labor and how work is either uh, put on a pedestal or devalued in our capitalist society. And I'm like, what kind of a labor can vampires produce, and how would that uh, affect how we treat vampires? So in one sense, vampires are these ancient um, beings, but they also have limitations if they want us to be in our society. But if they want to integrate, they would have to convince the larger society that they have something useful that they can contribute. And this was, oh, yeah, we will handle the space program. Like we can go farther than humans can, and we can explore, and we'll do all these good things for humanity. And that's how they sought. to sort of reintegrate, and it almost became like a commodity at that point. So it wasn't just ancient vampires, although in the world that I'm thinking of in the novel, kind of explored what happened to the ancient, more powerful classical vampires. But what was more interesting to me, especially in this short story and the world and the way it expanded the world, was the my protagonist here and the vampires in this refugee colony basically are a part of the working class, that they're the labor force, they're the ones who were recruited and turned into vampires to almost service the colony ships that were then destroyed, and now they have nowhere to go and very long lives ahead of them. So I guess that was the interesting thing, and also sort of the exploration of what does it mean to be monsters, because they still have it's almost like they are doing horrible things, but they think they're doing it in service of something better or something greater than themselves, like for taking humanity to the stars. But also they have a more immediate need of, I can feed my family if I turn into a vampire. And what is that? What are the mental gymnastics involved in something like that? And yeah, that was like a very fun thing to explore. It's always interesting to me how monsters get defined, and either they are a part of, they're not part of the society, they're oppressed, or they are the ones doing the oppressing, and how that dynamic plays out in different stories. Like I think of how Shape of Water, I think that sort of flipped the script of
Hmm.
what is a monster with the original horror movie that it came from. And yeah, I guess with vampires we keep going back and forth in culture with that. Like we have very interesting, like we have monstrous vampires, like with Nosferatu recently, and then we had Twilight, where it's like they're so they're the cool, handsome more vampires, and how that would, yeah, it's a very, vampires are inherently interesting and what they talk about our society at large. And yeah, and I guess that's the tradition that I'm following in this as well.
No, that makes a ton of sense for sure. And I always am a huge fan of any narrative that takes a monster that we know and love and kind of like uses it as a mirror to hold up to human society, which
Yeah.
like you mentioned Shape of Water by Guillermo del Toro, and we just watched we just did Pan's Labyrinth on my podcast where we review movies and stuff. And that does the same thing, right? I have you seen Pan's Labyrinth?
Yes. Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies.
Mine too. It's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. But that's one of those movies that does a really good job of that, right? Like you have the literal like reflection of the fairy world reflects the real world. There's monsters on both sides, and it kind of shows like how monstrous humanity can be by comparing it to these actual like dark fantasy monsters or fairy tales that we use to like instill fear, but it's like this fictional fear. And then when you hold it up to monstrous humans like the fascists of Franco's Spain, then you really see it's like, yeah, monsters are fictional, but they're based on a real thing. They're based on a real societal issue. They're based on real behaviors.
Yeah.
And I think you do a good job of that in this story too, because though they're still vampires, they're still drinking human blood and stuff, but I don't know, there's something about when you drop us the way you drop us right in the middle of this like clearly oppressed group of people trying to survive out in the middle of space, with clearly no resources and no help. And I like that you've got the propaganda around for us to see, which is like, so they came here with this purpose, they came here with this promise, right? And now they're stuck in the middle of nowhere with no support. To me, that again, it holds that mirror up, right? It shows like the dark side of the forces that put them there in the first place too, which is cool. Well done with that.
Thank you.
I guess last couple of things I would want to talk about. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for submitting this awesome story. I have loved it ever since we critiqued it at Cascade Writers in like 2023. So I'm really glad to finally get to publish it. What would you say? Well, you've been out there writing and doing this a lot more seriously over the last couple of years, I know. What would you say has
sort of like, how has your style changed, your approach to writing, whether that be your process or what you actually see end up on the final draft and on the page? How has that evolved over the course of the last couple of years you've been taking writing a lot more seriously?
Oh, yeah, great question. So, in a lot of ways, I think I'm a more attentive writer. I think when I started off, I was very much into, oh, this is a really cool idea. And I guess that's what most of us start off as, and wanted to write that really cool idea. Again, yeah, I would compare it to some of my favorite writers' works, and I'm like, oh, this is not really hitting the mark. And so a whole bunch of workshopping and studying at Cascade and Wayward Wormhole workshop. And so, yeah, I think I'm a lot more attentive about the stories that I'm creating, especially with the characters and how they interact with the world. Like, I am asking deeper questions of my characters right now, not just their. It's almost like getting better at psychoanalysis. I think it's like being able to ask, oh, okay, why this character is feeling angry, but what is the secondary emotion that they're feeling, and how can I
Yeah.
bring that out, and how would that enhance the story or bring something interesting into the world? My writing is definitely better on the page, but I've also noticed I'm a lot slower in my writing than I was, which I guess it's a good it's a trade-off, and I think I'm happy with having quality over quantity right now, and
Okay.
definitely being able to do more with every single sentence is something that I'm still working on. Don't just want to move the plot forward, but also be able to show character, show world building, do multiple things, and every line and every paragraph is something that I am still learning, and I think I have a ways to go. Yeah, it's like constantly learning. So I guess every year that I've been a writer, I'm realizing how much more there is to learn, and it is scary but also exciting at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. It's I always just remind myself of the famous Socrates last words, which is like, I know now that I know nothing, you know?
Yeah,
Um
yes.
Guy who spent his whole life trying to know everything, and all that. The more you learn, the more you realize, like, I'm never going to learn everything. The best I can do is like figure out how I can write my stories the best I can write them, because that's as far as you can get. You can never learn
Yeah,
everything, and you can never like learn every trick of the trade, and you're just not going to be good at all of them too, right?
yeah.
Like, we all have our different path to success, and mine is largely talking into microphones with awesome creative people like you. Has been a lot of my journey, and we all learn through these different facets, so that's cool. On that note, what are some of the like workshops, classes, learning opportunities for writing that you've experienced in recent years? Are there any you would suggest people try out or look into? What's been helpful for you for those?
Oh, yeah, definitely Cascade writing workshop where we met. It's attended it almost every year since 2021, and it's been amazing. Great learning experience every year. I also had the opportunity to attend Wayward Wormhole Workshop by Kat Rambo.
Nice.
This was in 2023, and that was an incredible experience there with uh, 3 weeks of amazing learning. I also have a lot of, I also take a lot of courses on Clarion West online classes.
Yeah.
I've attended a bunch of workshops on Apex, Reach Your Apex. That has been incredible. I also follow Writing Excuses, and I'm also with Mary Robinette Kowal's Patreon page, and she has a whole bunch of uh, lectures and workshop material to get better at writing. and of course, Brandon Sanderson's free lectures on YouTube that have been incredible. So yeah, there's a lot of great stuff available for writers starting out now. It's a great time to be a writer, to learn to be a writer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you're willing to do the learning and do the reading and the work, then you can learn to be a writer. There's so many awesome resources out there these days. Those all the ones you just mentioned are all excellent. Clarion is one of the best like resources in the Seattle area. Cascade Writers is an awesome workshop. That's why I volunteer for them every year. And yeah, so I'm really glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing those. And my final question, so you mentioned you were comparing your work to authors that you admire and kind of being like, I need to do better. You know, I do the same thing. Who are some of those authors? Who are some of your favorite authors that you look up to and sort of use as a, inspiration for your own work?
So definitely started reading horror with Shirley Jackson. And that's like what Haunting of Hill House is one of my favorite. The Lottery is amazing. Short story. Really enjoy her writing, and I guess that was the first thing that I started comparing myself to because it's a classic, and I loved it. So yeah, you could see how I felt like, oh my god, I'm not writing. I'm not even anywhere. I can't even be on the same shelf. But yeah, incredible work by, and my more recent favorites. I really enjoy uh, Tananarive. I
Yeah,
read
she's
The Good
awesome.
House. I've got Reformatory on my TBR. I'm really looking forward to that. I also enjoyed Isabel Kanya's work. I know P. Jelly Clark really enjoyed Ring
Hmm.
Shout. I know a lot of his other work is about Jin and Cairo, and it's more fantasy, and I really enjoyed that too. But Ring Shout is one of my favorite horror novellas. Also, really enjoy Cassandra Caw
Oh yeah,
novellas, really good. Yeah, those are my recent favorites. And oh, Sinners. I watched Sinners twice
yeah, it's awesome.
already. I want to watch it more times. But it's a great horror movie with vampires, which are my favorite monsters. So yeah, had a great time.
That's very on brand. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up P. Jelly Clark because he does write so much fantasy, but when he writes horror, man, it's so good. I love his horror. Like, did you read Out There Screaming, the collection that Jordan Peele put together?
Not yet. It's on my TBR as well.
Yeah, there's a P. Jelly Clark story in there called Hide and Seek, and it is one of my favorite short stories I've ever read. It's freaking awesome. So you got something good to look
Yeah,
forward to there. And
yeah.
Tanana is in that collection as well.
Yeah, I saw that. I was, yeah, that was. I picked up the collection. It's on my TBR. And, yeah,
Yeah, it's a really great one. So I'm excited to hear what you think about that. Maybe we can chat about it at
yes,
Cascades if you've gotten to it by then.
yep. Oh, one
Well,
final recommendation.
yes.
This is a British anthology. So I'm reading this thing called The Winter Spirit, Ghostly Tales for Frosty Night. And they also had one called The Haunting Season, which
Okay.
was like I think it came out 3 or 4 years ago, and it, yeah, they're my favorite horror anthologies, and it's all very creepy, atmospheric horror, which I enjoy a lot.
Oh, cool. What press is that?
This is littlebrown.co.uk. Yeah, that's what's on the book. But
Okay, cool.
I yeah, gonna see if I can get the actual link to that and share it with you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll include that. But yeah, always love a good anthology. Always love a good winter theme, especially. There's just a special place in my heart for horror that takes place in the cold. being from Montana and the Pacific Northwest. So I'm big fan of cold weather horror. It's just like
Yeah.
adds that extra element of hostility
Yeah.
and tension, I think, when you can't like go outside or you can't drive your vehicle
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But awesome. Thank you so much, Madhu, for being on the show today and for submitting this amazing story. We're so proud to feature you on Sinister Soup. And I'm really rooting for you for your novel. Good luck with that, and good luck in everything else you're doing with writing going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for sharing my story. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it is our pleasure. So everybody, Madhu Cambell, author of A Turn at the Neck. We hope you enjoyed the story and this interview. Go check out everything else she's doing. We will give you links to do so in the show notes. And until next time, this has been Sinister Soup. I've been your host, Clay Vermolem. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.